Welcome to Startup Voice with Efimchik. Today, we're going to talk about the investor's liquidation preference, what it is, why investors ask for it, and different types of liquidation preferences. To help us, we're going to use a fictional company that is raising money at a $4 million pre-money valuation, and it is raising $1 million. So this gets us to a post-money valuation of $5 million and the investor stake of 20%. We're going to keep this really simple. We're not going to talk about an option pool, which is going to come out of pre-money. We're not going to get into any of that because I think this material will be complicated enough without getting into those kinds of details. So let's say in this fictional company, the investor asks for a 1x non-participating liquidation preference. That's the best that a company can hope for. And what does that mean for us? Well, it means that if the company takes no other investment and is sold at more than a $5 million valuation, which is our post-money, then the investor is probably not going to use the liquidation preference and will simply convert into common stock in connection with the sale and get that percent of the proceeds of the company that this percentage would warrant. In other words, if this company is later sold for $100 million and this investor still has the 20%, in other words, nobody else came into this company, nobody else has diluted this investor, he still has 20%, then he'll have $20 million, a return of $20 million on his $1 million investment. Now, let's consider a different situation. Same fact pattern, but this investor is asking for a 1x participating liquidation preference. What is that going to mean? Well, if we have, and I'm going to keep the numbers really simple just to keep the math simple for all of us. Let's say this company sold at $101 million. So if we have a participating liquidation preference, the investor first takes out his $1 million, and after that he takes 20% of what remains. So we have, after he takes out the $1 million, we have another $100 million remaining, 20% of that. So he has $21 million that he takes away as his liquidation preference. So when we're talking about a sale of this magnitude, or rather, it's not that $100 million is such a successful sale, but it's a really successful sale. The company has never raised more than this $1 million, right? And it started out with this $4 million valuation. So for the investor, it's a really great return on investment. So given these facts, whether he has or does not have participating liquidation preference doesn't matter all that much. He either gets 20 million or 21 million on a $1 million investment. In percentages, it makes not a very big difference. However, if this company is sold for only 11 million, and we're still talking about a participating liquidation preference, he takes out 1 million off the top, gets another 2, right, the 20% from the remaining. So now he takes 3 million out of an $11 million total sale. That ends up being about 27% instead of 20 that he would have been entitled to in a non-participating scenario. And it also would have been roughly, it would be between 20 and 21% in the scenario we described with a $100 million valuation. So what this means is that if an investor takes a 1x participating liquidation preference, it's going to hurt more and it's going to matter more. It's going to hurt the founders and the other people in the company more, and it's going to matter more to the investor if the sale is going to be at a lower valuation. Right, at a higher valuation, this really doesn't matter. However, if we get into multipliers, right, if we get into 2x participating, 3x participating, the amount that a company has to sell for has to be greater and greater for this to really not matter. So there's a third variety of liquidation preference that we should talk about, and this is called participating with a cap. And what this could mean is, let's say that we have Still 1x liquidation preference. Well, normally you actually wouldn't use this with a 1x. Let's say we have a 3x liquidation preference, and but it's capped at 5 million or 15 million. So this means that we're never going to get into a situation where the investor is going to get his 3 million plus 3x, right? 3 million plus the 20 million, which would be the 20% of 100 million. This is the sort of first situation we were talking about. So if his total liquidation preference was capped at, let's say, 15 million, then there's a point at which he would no longer take any liquidation preference and would only get compensated on an as converted to common stock basis. You have to be really familiar with these concepts when you're talking to investors. You have to understand what it means. You have to think through whether it makes sense to argue over it, because, as I said, in some situations it's just not going to matter because of the price point at which the investor is coming in versus the price point at which the company is hoping to get sold. I hope this has been helpful. Happy company making, and hope to see you soon in our next episode.